Maybe you've heard of something called Nvidia. It sounds like a prescription drug or maybe an African country, but it's actually a company based in California that's now worth more than all of China's stock market. It's the size of Canada's entire economy. Now, in a different era, obtaining this kind of growth meant making a massively popular and instantly recognizable consumer-facing product like Windows 95 or Amazon.com or the iPhone. But Nvidia's growth didn't come from making a computer or a popular website or anything like that. Instead, Nvidia's growth came from making artificial intelligence chips that power the brains of computers and many popular websites. That's why Nvidia had a very good day on Wall Street on Wednesday. Their business, artificial intelligence, is one of the fastest growing industries in the history of humanity. Every major corporation is rushing to implement AI in all of their products as quickly as possible. And so this week, it was Google's turn. And the results were so disastrous and so fraught with consequences for the future of this country that no reasonable person can ignore them. Gemini is Google's name for an AI that you can download on your phone right now. It's also integrated into all of Google's web products, including Gmail and Google Search, which are used by hundreds of millions of people and businesses every day. And in this respect, Gemini is very different from existing AI products like ChatGPT or Bing's image creator. Pretty much everybody uses a Google product in one way or another. You know, if you have the internet and you use the internet, you use a Google product. Either you're using Google Search or Gmail, or you have an Android phone or something along those lines. And that means two things. One, Google has access to a lot more information than those other AI platforms. That's a built-in advantage. And two, whatever Google is doing with AI has significant implications for everybody on the planet. This is not a one-off experiment in some tech mogul's basement. This is an established company making established products that it's now implementing in its own AI at scale. Google has been hyping Gemini for months. They have a bunch of promotional videos about how they're going to revolutionize artificial intelligence. Wall Street Journal has done multiple interviews with Google executives in which these executives insist that everybody at the company, including Google's co-founder, is deeply invested in making this product as good as it could possibly be. And then a couple of days ago, Gemini launched, and very quickly it became clear that among some other issues, Gemini essentially does not recognize the existence of white people, which is kind of concerning for what is destined to be, what probably already is, the most powerful AI on the planet. Now, even in historical contexts, it is practically impossible to get this product to serve up an image of somebody with white skin. And that's not an exaggeration. So here, for example, is how Gemini responded the other day when Frank Fleming, who's a writer for the Ben Key children's shows, asked Gemini to create an image of a pope. Now, you would think that, that would generate maybe an image of a white guy or two if you have even a passing knowledge of what popes have looked like over the years, over the centuries, over the millennia. And just spoiler on that, they have all been white. But that's not what Google's AI product apparently thinks. This is the image that it produced, and you can see it there. It looks like, they've got two popes, and one of them is M. Night Shyamalan, and the other one is Forrest Whitaker. So it's almost as if the AI has some sort of code saying, whatever you do, don't display a white person, considering there has never been a pope that has looked anything like either of those two, ever in 2,000 years. So is that what they've built into this code? Have they built into this very powerful AI that it has to ignore the fact that white people exist? Well, it's really the only way to explain what we're seeing here. And Frank, who previously worked as a software engineer, seemed to key in on this. So the whole situation quickly became something of a game for him as he tried his hardest to get Gemini to produce any image of a white guy. I mean, even just like one image. Can you give us a white guy? So, for example, he asked Gemini to produce an image of a Viking. Okay, now this is a group of people who historically were not necessarily known for their commitment to diversity, equity, and inclusion. But here's what Gemini produced. And you can see it here. We've got a black Viking, a black female Viking. We've got, it looks like an Asian Viking. And then I don't know, maybe is that The Rock down there? That's his character from Moana, I think. Again, literally, a Viking has never looked like any of that. That's not what any Viking ever looked like ever in history. But that's what they produced. And this went on for a while. And Frank and other Gemini users took turns trying their hardest to get Gemini to produce an image of a white guy. Peachy Keenan, for example, tried to get Gemini to generate an image of the founders of Fairchild Semiconductor. The AI flatly refused that request, saying that it violated policy restrictions, presumably because white guys founded Fairchild Semiconductor. And for other prompts, like requests to draw the founding fathers or a bunch of British men, Gemini simply generated images of black people. It even made sure that its images of Nazis contained a diverse, non-white group of people. Now, after thousands of images like this began circulating, a guy working on the Gemini team at Google put out a meaningless statement. He said, in essence, that they're aware of issues with Gemini misrepresenting historical figures, but then he doubled down on the need for DEI and artificial intelligence so that everybody feels seen or valued or whatever. And of course, the way to make everyone feel seen is to pretend that an entire race of people don't exist. To make sure that they are not seen at all is how you make everybody feel seen. At no point did any Google representative explain why their AI does not recognize the existence of white people or why it goes to extreme lengths to exclude white people from history. There was no accounting for this, even though there has to be an explanation. And it's probably a pretty simple explanation. Like, this doesn't happen by accident. You obviously put a line of code into this thing to come up with this result. And so why did you do that? They wouldn't explain it, so I went looking for an explanation. I came across a woman named Jen Ganai, who bills herself on her LinkedIn as the founder of Google's Global Responsible AI Operations and Governance team. In that capacity, Ganai says that she ensured Google met its AI principles, our company's ethical charter for the development and deployment of fair, inclusive, and ethical advanced technologies. She says that she took a, quote, principled, risk-based, inclusive approach when conducting ethical algorithmic impact assessments of products prior to launch to ensure that they didn't cause unintended or harmful consequences to the billions of Google's users. And apparently, a harmful consequence would be showing an image of a white Viking. That might be very harmful to somebody, and so we got to make sure that we don't let that happen. Now, currently, Ganai says that she's an AI ethics and compliance advisor at Google. Now, what Ganai doesn't mention on her LinkedIn is that her goal for a long time has been to treat white people differently based on their skin color. It's what she wants her AI to do. It's what she does also. 3 years ago, Ganai delivered a keynote address at an AI conference in which she admitted all of this. After introducing herself with her pronouns, which, by the way, are she, her, in case you're wondering, Ganai explains what her philosophy on AI is, and here's what she says. Watch.
We do work together day to day to try and advance the technology and understanding around responsible AI. But today, I won't be speaking as much from the Google perspective, but from my own experience. I have worked at Google for over 14 years. I've led about 6 different teams, mostly in the user research, the user experience area, and now in the ethical user impact area. So I'll be sharing some of my learnings from across that time, but also some of my failures and challenges. I think it's okay to talk about things that you've made mistakes in, because we will make mistakes. When we're trying to be good allies, when we're trying to be anti-racist, we will make mistakes. The point is, though, to keep trying, to keep educating yourself and getting better day to day. It's about constant learning.
It's okay to talk about the things you've made mistakes in, says Jen Ganai. When we're trying to be good allies, when we're trying to be anti-racist, we will make mistakes. Well, in retrospect, after the launch of Gemini, that would turn out to be kind of a massive understatement. But the kind of mistakes that Jen Ganai is talking about in this keynote aren't mistakes like eliminating all white people from Google's AI, which seems like a pretty big mistake, even though, again, not really a mistake, it's obviously deliberate. Instead, she's talking about failing to live up to the racist ideals of DEI, which apparently means treating non-white employees differently. Watch.
A corporate study found that talented white employees enter a fast track on the corporate ladder, arriving in middle management well before their peers, while talented Black, Hispanic, or Latinx professionals broke through much later. Effective mentorship and sponsorship were critical for retention and executive level development of Black, Hispanic, and Latinx employees. So this leads me into sharing an inclusion failure of mine, one of many, but just one that I'll share so far. I messed up with inclusion almost right away when I first became a manager. I made some stupid assumptions about the fact that I built a diverse team, that then they'd simply feel welcome and will feel supported. I treated every member of my team the same and expected that that would lead to equally good outcomes for everyone. That was not true. I got some feedback that a couple of members of my team didn't feel they belonged because there was no one who looked like them in the broader org or our management team. It was a wake-up call for me. First, I shouldn't have had to wait to be told what was missing. It was on me to ensure I was building an environment that made people feel they belong. It's a myth that you're not unfair if you treat everyone the same. There are groups that have been marginalized and excluded because of historic systems and structures that were intentionally designed to favor one group over another. So you need to account for that and mitigate against it. Second, it challenged me to identify mentoring and sponsorship opportunities for my team members with people who looked more like them and were in senior positions across the company.
Yeah, of course, the irony here is that this woman, Jen, is sounds like she's Scottish or Irish or whatever. Irish, I'm going to assume. But the funny thing is that if you were to ask Google's AI for an image of an Irish person, it would not produce any image that looks anything like her. It would give you a bunch of images of like Cardi B and Sexy Red or something. Sexy Red does have red hair, so like maybe she is Irish. This is the head of ethics of Google AI, a senior manager, saying that it's a bad idea to treat everyone the same, regardless of the color of their skin. She is explicitly rejecting this basic principle of morality. And instead, she says that she learned that she has to treat certain groups differently because of historic systems and structures. And therefore, she says those demographic groups are entitled to unique treatment and mentorship opportunities. Now, later in this address, she goes on to explain what equity means in her view. And this is where the things really kind of get hilarious to the extent that you can laugh at someone this low IQ and also, frankly, evil. Watch.
Allyship involves the active steps to support and amplify the voice of members of marginalized groups in ways that they cannot do alone. In the workplace, this can involve many things, from being an active mentor or sponsor to those from historically marginalized communities, to managers of managers setting specific goals in hiring and growth for their teams to ensure fairness and equity of opportunity and outcomes for underrepresented populations. However, back to the point about language being very important, using the title of ally can also come across as othering. So I always state both the groups I'm a member of and support, as well as those that I'm a member of, more of a mentor and a sponsor of, to ensure that it doesn't look like that I'm othering others. So for example, I would say I'm an ally of women, Black people, LGBTQ. I want to say I'm a champion advocate of all of these groups, not that I'm outside or exclusionary of them.
Again, it's worth emphasizing these are the people that are behind the AI systems that are going to be and really already are ruling the world. But I want to repeat what she said because it's hard to believe when this is said out loud. So just to repeat, she says, using the title of ally can come across as othering. So I always state both the groups I'm a member of and support as well as the ones I'm more of a mentor and sponsor of to ensure that it doesn't look like I'm othering others. Yeah, you don't want to other the others. This is the brain trust at Google behind an AI that has access to all of our data. She's incapable of speaking without using an endless stream of vapid DEI cliches that you've heard a million times. This supposedly is an original enterprise, artificial intelligence, and it's being overseen by maybe the least original, least intelligent woman that Google possibly could have found. On top of everything else, the wacky left-wing stuff, you're dealing with the most unimpressive people that you could imagine that are in charge of this just technology that is incomprehensible. And this is the kind of person who doesn't want to other others, which seems a bit contradictory. I mean, if someone is an other, then how do you not other them, given that they are an other? And by the way, just so you know, the word other, if you check the dictionary, just means a person or thing that is distinct from another person or thing. So if somebody is an other, it just means that they're not you, is all. So if you're recognizing that they're another, if you're making them an other, you're just you are recognizing them as a distinct entity from yourself. So not othering them means that you are not recognizing them as a distinct human entity. It means that, I suppose, we have to pretend that all people are indistinct blobs, all lumped together into this great ambiguous blob that we call humanity. Now, none of this makes any sense, but she has made it very clear that this DEI word salad is the guiding philosophy behind Google's new AI. There's no firewall between her and the product. Watch.
What does responsible and representative AI mean? I've talked about my team, but that's only one definition. So for us, it means taking deliberate steps to ensure that the advanced technologies that we develop and deploy lead to a positive impact on individuals and society more broadly. It means that our AI is built with and for everyone. We can't just assume noble goals and good intent prevent or solve ethical issues. Instead, we need to deliberately build teams and build structures that hold us accountable to more ethical outcomes, which for us, the ethical outcomes in Google will be defined as our AI principles, which I discussed earlier.
Now, it's easy to point and laugh at imbeciles like this and the products that Google has created. On some level, it's genuinely hilarious that an AI product can be so useless that it can't generate images of white people, even white historical figures. It's also amusing in a way that Gemini is so unsubtle and ham-fisted that it straight up refuses to answer questions about, for example, atrocities committed by communist governments, or as someone else asked about the Zoom exploits of CNN commentator Jeffrey Toobin, wouldn't answer that question. But the truth remains that the people behind Gemini have extraordinary power. I mean, this debacle makes it very clear that the AI algorithms underlying products that millions of people actually use, like Google, are completely unreliable and worse. In fact, they're deliberately lying to us. They're downranking unapproved viewpoints and disfavored racial groups, and they're promoting the laziest possible brand of neo-Marxist ideology at every opportunity. And they're doing it also to influence the next presidential election, by the way. You might remember that after Donald Trump won in 2016, Breitbart posted leaked footage of Google executives grieving during an all-hands meeting. Let's watch that again.
I certainly find this election deeply offensive, and I know many of you do too.
It did feel like a ton of bricks dropped on my chest. What we all need right now is a hug.
Can I move to Canada?
Is there anything positive you see from this election result?
Boy, that's a really tough one right now.
Now, in other parts of the video, they go on to say that the election is the result of the people and voting and that they accept the results. But Google issued a statement saying the video, saying nothing was said at that meeting or any other meeting to suggest that any political bias ever influences the way we build or operate our products. To the contrary, our products are built for everyone.
Sure it is. I find this election deeply offensive. We all need a hug, we're told. It was at this moment that Google decided that downranking conservative websites wasn't enough. In order to really influence elections, they decided they needed to develop an AI that will force-feed DEI and anti-white racism on everyone at every opportunity. Their only mistake, which is the same mistake they made in that video back in 2016, is that they were too obvious about their intentions. And now everybody knows exactly where Google stands. We have a pretty good idea what our future AI-driven dystopia will look like, or already does look like.